Hello, class, and welcome to this video production of the World War I propaganda poster project. For those of you who are not present in class, this will be a good overview of what is expected out of this project. If you have any questions, you can always ask me in class. What we're going to be doing over the next couple of days, and is going to be due later this week, is creating a World War I propaganda poster. Now, we've already talked a little bit about what is propaganda, what is total war, so I'm not going to go into that too much. What I want to start is right here, the objectives of propaganda. The objectives of World War I propaganda were five in depth. First, recruitment of soldiers. Okay, it was absolutely crucial that each nation recruit as many soldiers as possible, so using posters in order to do that. Generating revenue, raising money for the war. This is known as war bonds or short-term loans for the war effort. The elimination of dissent was a key idea. Essentially, you wanted to make sure your entire population was on board with your war effort. Conservation of resources, trying to prevent the overexertion of resources. Things like having meatless Mondays or breadless Wednesdays really help the war effort by allowing more resources to go to the war effort. Lastly, increasing support from the home front in its entirety, making sure that everyone was on the same page about defeating the Germans, or in World War II, defeating the Japanese. These five objectives were the main ideas for which all propaganda posters were kind of created. You have to remember that during this time, even though we're very far into the Industrial Revolution, there is still no radio yet for general use. There's also no TV. So the primary kind of form in which citizens were given information was through these giant posters that were hung all over the place. In order to obtain these objectives, in order to win these objectives, nations around the world all had different tactics that they used. Here are the seven most common ones. The first one is name calling, the use of derogatory or negative words to associate the enemy with negative symbols or evil. For instance, calling the Germans Huns was a key one there. Glittering generalities, association of virtuous words with your cause. Name calling in reverse. Good people do this to help the war effort, therefore so should you. Euphemism, using common words to soften the blow of terrible tragedy. A perfect example is even in 2016, when civilians die in war, it's not known as, we killed children, like we blew up a school or something like that. All those people that were killed are known as collateral damage. Okay, so it's a softer word to portray a more difficult topic. Next up is transfer, the transfer of power of something we respect or admire to an object we hope to eventually respect or admire. For instance, putting a religious symbol associated with a politician that wants to try to get elected, you're trying to transfer some of that religious power to that politician. Next up, testimonial, having someone who's popular or is in popular culture or a natural leader tell you about how great the effort is, and therefore you should work towards the war effort as well. I think very strongly of Captain America whenever I think of testimonials about what he did prior to serving actually in the armed forces. Bandwagon, everyone else is doing it, so should you. This is a clear peer pressure tactic to get you and all your friends to join the military. Lastly, fear, a very strong one as well. A warning that something terrible could happen if a certain action is not taken. If we don't stop the Germans in Europe, they might eventually come and conquer the United States as well. Here below are just some perfect examples of each one of them. I've broken them down for you just so you can kind of see what they each look like. Your job in this project is to design your own World War I propaganda poster. First, you need to pick a country to represent. You may do any country that is a combatant in World War I. Now, if you scroll down just a little bit more, you'll see most of you guys will probably pick the United States, which is fine, but just know that there are more rewards for you if you do something different. For instance, any of the other Triple Alliance or Triple Entente members, you can get 75 points instead, or a different nation could make it even more interesting. After you pick a country to represent, research as many propaganda posters as you can to try and find kind of what your niche is. Then after you do that, you need to go ahead and reinforce one of the 5 objectives that you see up here. So yours could be a British propaganda poster about conserving bread, because you want to do conservation of resources, conserving bread during World War I. Or maybe you're trying to recruit more French soldiers to fight at the Battle of Verdun. Okay, so you're going to pick an objective that you want to portray. And then lastly, you're going to pick a tactic to use. You're going to use one of these 7 tactics in your propaganda poster in order to make your propaganda poster the best it can be. This project, like I said, is going to be due later this week, so it's kind of important that you get started. If you have any questions, of course, you can always come and ask me, and I will be happy to assist you in any way I can. Thank you for following along today. I'll see you later.